always fun finding the bourbons that aren't the big main ones, and super excited to try this. I told the Frasers it's been really tough since they handed me the sample pack not to get into it until right now. So I'm excited to be a part of this. Thanks for including me.
Ann?
Hey, I'm Ann Frazier. I'm not Scott Frazier, even though it says Scott up here. The other half of Naples Bourbon Society, run it with my husband Scott. We're both executive bourbon stewards, so just love all things bourbon, passionate about the people, the history, the culture, and just the friendships that you make along the way, right? So that's what it's all about. Just kind of love the whole culture of bourbon, and there's always something new to learn. So thanks for having me. I guess I can also be the token tonight. So.
How about you, David? Or
David's one of us.
I'm a laws person,
and then we
but
have,
I can jump in. I'm the director of sales for the East, so love coming down to Florida.
Yes, he does.
How about you, Ryan?
Ryan Carter, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and so I've been drinking bourbon for a long time. I have a bunch of kids now, so I don't drink it as often, but I do. I enjoy all types of bourbon, whiskey. I enjoy all types of liquor in general, but particularly like whiskeys and bourbon. So I live here in Naples as well. So I'm looking forward to it, and love seeing the variety of bottled and bond flavors we have here today. So I'm excited.
Han? I don't know these two guys. iPad?
So there's John from our group as well.
Okay.
Hi, I'm John Dolorfino, one of the local guys, part of the Southwest Florida Bourbon Society. Been in Fort Myers for a while now. Me and Bobby went to high school together. I'm just excited to grow this society quickly and to see there's a lot of thirsty people down here, and probably bring laws to this area and introduce it to people and see how great this whiskey is.
Good.
And then our last person is Matt Haynes. It just says iPad on there, but
Mr. iPad. I missed the question, but I guess we're just introducing everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
So yeah, I'm Matt. I'm part of this, incredible group down here. We're super excited to try this. I've never had it before. Literally just saw it on the shelf today. That local store right down the street, San Carlos Liquors. And my wife and I, she's sitting over here out of the way here, but we both really enjoy being part of this club, part of the group. Both of us have enjoyed bourbon our whole lives. I mean, I pulled a picture up here so you can kind of see. That's inside the house.
Nice.
Very good.
The rest of the guys in the group have certainly enjoyed, coming over, and I certainly enjoy having everybody over. I mean, drinking bourbon, sharing stories, and sharing, bottle pours is what this is all about.
Right. I'll hand it over to your group now.
Sure. Hey, I'd just like to say on behalf of our group, David, who will introduce himself in a second, of course, our leader here, Al Laws, we're just really happy to be in Florida now. It's been a progression. I got here about 4 months ago now. Actually, these guys will tell you it's about 90 days. But I came over from Sazerac, where I've been for the last 8 years. And before that, I bounced around the business a bit with some bigger and smaller companies. And we're an amazing brand, got a great team of people, and it's always awesome for us to connect with folks like yourselves, especially as we're just getting started in the market. So I'll take you through a few things in a second, but I'll kick it over to David Cronin, and he can tell you a little bit about himself.
Well, I'm short and sweet because we're burning daylight here, and I haven't had any drink yet tonight, and I'm jonesing a little bit. So I cover the East Coast. I live outside of DC, so I'm happy we're in Florida, especially October through March, so I can get down here when it's warm. And I was down earlier in the month, did the Tampa area, going back to the Jacksonville area this month. So excited to introduce it to Florida. We've had great response. And in Florida is the first market outside of Colorado where we kicked off the cask strength. A little different because we just didn't have enough bonded to open the state with. And the results was fantastic. So it was really eye-opening for us. So we're excited about it.
Good.
The end.
And over to Al.
To me?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, this is all about you.
All right. Well, you want me to just spool this up?
Yeah. No, here,
Everyone looks thirsty to me.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. So listen, again, thanks to all you folks, especially Scott, Ian, and Sean for setting this up, and to the Naples Bourbon Society and the Southwest Florida Bourbon Society. We're psyched to be here with you guys. So just to kind of frame us up, for those of you who don't know a little bit about the history. So Laws is a grain glass distillery that was founded by Al and his wife, Marianne, back in 2011. For us, every batch of whiskey we make is milled, cooked, fermented, distilled, and aged on site, utilizing heirloom grains from family-owned Colorado farms. We use open-air fermentation techniques, and a copper pot column still produces a robust, and as some of you have already cheated and know, grain-forward style of whiskey that we age in 53-gallon American oak barrels sourced from Independent Stave Company in Missouri. So with that little introduction, because I know you guys are into the videos and the music, Scott's going to play us a little video, and then Al's going to start the tasting and lead us through it. And I know everybody's ready for that.
All right.
7 o'clock on a Thursday night, at least here. Cheers.
The 4-grain side of this to us is to start with a base that's really super complex. Most bourbon is either a wheat bourbon, so it's corn, wheat, and barley, or it's a rye bourbon, so corn, rye, and barley. We're making all four, and we're trying to, in a very painstaking way, give somebody the experience of all four American mother grains in every sip.
The 4 grains that we use in our bourbon are corn from the Whiskey Sisters in Burlington. We use wheat, rye, and barley from the Cody family in Alamosa. In our whiskey, we try to balance out all those flavors from all 4 grains so that you can taste everything and identify those flavors.
The intent was to create something that you don't see every day. And that's true, that 4-grain bourbon whiskeys are somewhat rare. We want to show that we have some love for these other grains, and we want other people to know what those expressions come out like. I think we brought that to the table with our flagship product being that 4-grain bourbon.
All right.
Here we go.
Wow, we look so pro with like a little video flash and everything. I'm a little proud of that. That was pretty cool. All right, guys. Well, I'm Al Laws. Thanks for attending. We appreciate you making the time to join us this evening. So, thanks for tuning in. I'm the president and the founder of Laws Whiskey House. We're very happy to be selling whiskey in Florida. And today we're going to taste through a number of the expressions currently in the market, and a few that are just about there, or maybe they've arrived and are going to hit the shelves pretty soon. But our tasting flow tonight, I got them all lined up here already, been breathing for about a half an hour. We're going to start with our 4-grain bourbon, which is the flagship. And then we're going to skip to the cask strength version of that. And then after that, we'll dive into something that's we're really well known for, and we've got a lot of accolades for it, but it's our rye whiskey. We'll start with the SLV rye, and then we'll follow that one with the cask strength version. And then we're going to finish up with, I guess we're going to try some of the 2021 bonded 6-year-old 4-grain and rye releases, which again, I think are on their way there or in state, and they're ready to go out. So this is a pretty highly allocated thing. And something we're pretty proud of, and I think you're going to enjoy all three of these steps, put it that way. So let's kind of like dive into the tasting right off. So hopefully you have it all poured. I got my little tiny bottle of it here too. We'll start with the flagship 4-grain. So pick it up, put it in the glass, pick it up. I'm sure none of you have ever tasted whiskey before, and this will be a really complex thing for you. Probably you need to take some notes maybe, but the way we like to do this is to nose it first, but we want to breathe through our mouth and our nose at the same time. And that way we don't burn out our olfactory cavity with higher proof stuff. So breathe in a little. Take a little sip of it. Start that, just quick sip. Chew it a little, swish it around, and then sort of forget about it for a minute. So let it sit in. Most bourbon, as you know, is either a wheater or high rye type. Ours is both. Painstaking effort here to deliver this. And I'm not kidding. This took us a while at the beginning so that all 4 of those American mother grains, you're going to get all those in the sip, right? The mash bill, you guys are most likely interested in that. So it's a lower corn recipe. It's only 60%. And then 20% wheat, and then 10 rye and 10 barley malt. All the barrels in this batch that you're trying are at least 3 years old. The average age is probably closer to 3.5, 3 years, 4 months. But they're all over 3 for this. We bottle it at 95 proof. So decently high proof. So now we let that settle, and I'll take like a nice, really big sip, but leave some in the glass. I want you to compare this to the cask strength here in a few minutes. So
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers. Kind of let that sit. So it's 4 grains, right? We promised 4 grains in every sip. The first part, the front end, really delicate whiskey, very sweet. The sweetness is the corn. Big surprise, right? Then there's that bite. It comes in really quickly after. I call it a penny metallic kind of bite. Some people don't like that description. Oh, you mean metal, but it is. It's kind of a penny metallic. That's the rye. And you'll get to try that in a few minutes. And you'll know what I mean. And then it quickly moves into kind of like a doughy, bready thing, but with cinnamon and cardamom, almost like cinnamon buns, right? That's the wheat. It also presents it with some pretty good orange notes too. And then the finish, maybe we have another sip, get the finish a little better. The finish is kind of nutty. Walnuts, maybe hazelnut, depending on the day. And that's from the barley. And these are all heirloom varieties, but they all present. So it took a while to make sure that when we're making a 4-grain, we don't just want it to taste like a rye bourbon. And the rye does take over. Some of our older stuff, it does taste more like rye because of the rye at 10% is just a bigger grain. But this is definitely, you can taste the wheat in it. So what are people tasting? We want to make this as interactive as possible. Like the flavors that we typically get are like apple, orange.
Definitely got the orange, got the apple up front. That rye comes in really nice. That little white pepper, mouth. Both of us enjoy ryes just for that nice bite, that nice mouth, and then you hit it right on the spot, a little doughy, and then that nice warm nutty finish. First words out of wife's mouth is, wow, really enjoyable, nice drinker.
Yeah, it's easy, right? It's approachable, like Maker's Mark, but yet it's got complexity more like Four Roses.
Yeah.
So that's how it was designed, to be in those in that goalpost. The other thing that you're going to taste in all of the whiskeys tonight, which is sort of a signature flavor for us, and again, it comes from the grain, but it's this deep black tea, Irish breakfast tea or orange pico tea. Yeah. Like that's going to sit on your palate for a while in all these whiskeys.
There's definitely Sweetness, sorry.
No, wanted Alan to kind of talk about how you're pretty much grain to bottle. I mean, and kind of talk about that maybe a little, think about
Sure.
that here a little bit. But it's one of the things when you open a bottle, it's just, I mean, you smell it's just farm that comes right out of the bottle, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's the reason I love Four Grain. I mean, there's just so much that comes out of that bottle, and so I mean, and you know what, I say it's like smelling hard work, and it's just a lot to it. So, Sean, I know you had a question, but
Well, let me give you a quick history then. So as Al said earlier, my wife and I founded this in 2011. So literally our 10th anniversary. And you think about it, like that's a lot of years. But to make a whiskey, to bring a brand from grain to glass to life, it takes 20 years. We're only halfway, ladies and gentlemen. And so it's a long pursuit, and you have to have the right focus, and you have to play the long game here. And we're definitely grain to glass. In fact, we would describe it as dirt to glass, because it isn't just the grain, it's the type of grain we're using and where it's grown. So you're getting real terroir from this. We've only made whiskey. Everything we focus on, we don't make vodka or gin or anything else. We waited for 3 years before we sold the first drop. And everything we do is sort of traditional in methods, but that we pick up this distinctive regional flair by ingredients. So we're using traditional sour mash methods, just like in Kentucky. I think that's the best, and we're using pot stills so that we get more flavor, concentrates flavor more than a column still does. And you have more control over the cuts. But our heirloom variety of grain is grown by family farms. Like, we don't buy this from Raw or Great Western. We buy it right from the farms. So they grow it for us. And again, we can talk about the varietals later if you want. But some of these grains are only grown in Colorado too. So like Centennial wheat is a Colorado varietal, and then this SLV rye is only grown in this valley in Colorado and the rest of the world, then grown anywhere else. Good winter rye. But these grains, they pack so much more flavor into the distillate. So when we say grain forward, someone will go, oh, that's because it isn't aged long enough. And I'm like, no, it's because the grains can stand up to these 53-gallon heavily charred American oak barrels that we use. They can stand up to it. Like they're going to be able to hack 10 years. A lot of other stuff is not. So we're using full-size barrels, char number 3, and our grain flavors still shine through after, these are 3 to 4 year old, the ones you're first going to taste, but the later ones here are 6.5 years old, and this grain's still right up front, even though there's a lot more barrel influence on them. So then some people ask, why do we ever start something like this? Well, I could say, oh, I'm passionate about whiskey, but I know you all are already passionate about it. You're here on your Thursday night. We already saw the picture. I'm sure a lot of you have like quite a pile of bottles, and I love that you're sharing them. That's the only way to do it. But I'm not really passionate about it. I'm more like obsessed by this, right? So, and that's really a good description, because I used to have about 600 different whiskeys in the house. I'm down to below 400. A lot of that has to do with COVID. I definitely got rid of partial bottles over the last 14 months or 13 months. But whiskey's always been my go-to, really, and it's my favorite. Like, I don't drink wine. I'm in beer mecca here in Colorado, and I don't really drink beer, so it's tough. And but we have a lot of people that in the state that are geeky about anything that they drink. So it helps us when we interact with our people, our neighbors, really, who have supported us out of the gate and got us to where we are right now. And we get better every day. One of the things that if you come to see the distillery, on the wall there's a massive sign that says there are no shortcuts. In fact, I have it on my arm. It's part of our thing. We don't take any shortcuts, and everything we do, we look to increasing the amount of time and integration with all of our products, whether it's barrel to barrel through special finishes, or really from right from grain selection. Again, this stuff comes to us. We get malt in 1-ton super sacks that was fired the day before or dried, it's still warm inside. It's all fresh. So all this is made to order. They malt it on the farm. They have a malting facility. They were one of the very first craft malting companies in the whole country. In fact, I think they are the first one. There's a lot more now, but they were the ones that started over a decade ago. But again, whiskey's always my go-to. You all are in Whiskey Club. You're clearly in the same kind of geeky place that we are. I'll tell you that's for sure. But, you know, we wanted to combine all the elements of things that I thought were really great in my collection and things I drank over the years to come up with something novel and amazing, right? Thus, our flagship is this 4-grain bourbon. And I like the intro. You're like, hey, I want to try this because this sounds a really neat thing that I want to get into. And when we started, there were maybe 2, maybe 3 4-grains, like Hudson was one. And there was no, now it's really a category. There's a lot of 4-grain out there, and not just using American mother grain either. There's a lot that's using like millet and other kind of cool stuff. So we're not into that. We're kind of more traditional, but there's a lot of different things and flavor in particular can come from that. But, you know, 15 years ago, this was just an idea on paper. 5 years from then, bought a building, started making it. We actually started making it on July 4th, 2011. So we're born on the 4th of July. So another cool part, and I'm Canadian, so it makes less sense. So, but the final piece of the puzzle though, was in 2009, when we were trying to see how the big, hugely successful companies that make some of the best whiskey in the world do it in Kentucky. And I met this guy who's my mentor still today. He's been retired a long time. He's 86 this year, and he's my Yoda. And in 2009, I met him on a trip through Kentucky. His name's Bill Friel, and he's a retired master distiller from Barton's. I'm sure you all have had 1792, Very Old Barton, you know, stuff that's rated. Those are big whiskeys, big, heavy rye whiskeys, heavy rye bourbon whiskeys. Anyway, he did 40 years in the spirits business. He's a real master distiller back when there was only 9 in the country. And I'd say I'd credit Bill with teaching me how to instill like really soul in the whiskey. I could read everything, and I have read everything, and I know the temperatures and do this and this and this. But without the art, you don't end up with something like you're drinking today. It takes a lot more, and a lot more, and it is art. And it is a hands-on thing. You can't just rely on formulas. But Bill took us on because we were going to do it the right way. He's like, I'm retired. I don't need to do this crap if you're just going to, you know, pay me this for this and spend 6 months together and you're going to go do something else. And we're like, nah, we're going to do it the way, you know, we're here to build it over a longer term. We're not releasing it at 18 months old. We're not doing any of that. So he took us on, and working with him, we were able to conceive of this kind of 4-grain bourbon recipe. And, you know, we think bridges rye and bourbon and wheated bourbon. Like we said earlier, light body, it's full flavored, very approachable. Get the complexities there, and you'll get the complexity as we kind of get through. We'll go into the next, the cast strength, and then into the 6-year-old bonded as well. It's going to change a bit, but all those elements are still there. So that's kind of it. That's the origins of Law's Whiskey House, why the flavors matter, and we're really about flavor. Our entire brand and our whole village of people that make it, and it's not just me, it's my production team. It's you see our sales people here tonight, all professional people, and they're all part of what makes this great, all of them. So let's move on. Let's have another sip of this. I'm getting kind of low, but.
I have a question. So 4-grain, at least for me, is, you know, it was just 3 or 4 years ago to where it, you know, it kind of came on the scene, on the big scene, I guess, when, what's it called? You know, Buffalo Trace had, I can't even think of it. They had 4-grain. Yeah.
Taylor, right?
Yeah, the 4-grain. And so I that was the first time I think I had 4-grain. I got a few bottles of that, and I enjoyed it. Is the reason people or distilleries weren't looking at 4-grain because is it a tougher thing to get right?
Oh, I think it's very tough to get right. So we don't just throw it all in, fire up the cooker, take the tap, rest, take it down. Now it's what I call, using beer tech or terminology. Yeah, it's an inverted stepped infusion mash. So we'll take corn up. So normally you start at 125 in beer, and you add and you move the temperature up. I'm doing the inverse. I'm starting high, right? And then I'm going to bring it once I rest the corn. And the tweak on getting it to not just taste like a rye bourbon was to cook the rye with the corn. So normally rye you would only take up to like maybe 160, but because it'll gelatinize at that, it blows apart, you get full access to the starch. But at 200, you're gonna denature it slightly. So the flavors are still there, but they're not as powerful, right? So that was after 6 months, we figured out how to do that. So we cook those together and then we bring it down. And around 160 is where we start adding the raw wheat. And we'll slowly bring it down from 160. And once it hits into the 153, 54 range is where we'll add a little bit of wheat malt into this as well. And so that goes in. And then once it's 148, the barley malt goes in. So it's a tougher thing. This could take us 2 hours to cook, or it could take 4 or 5 like it takes us really. So because of those steps, because we want to maximize the temperatures and the right time in which to add every grain flavor. So it is more complex to make. And I would say that it would be tough on a big scale in Kentucky to do that because of the way they're set up for production.
You're a full pot still. I mean, you couldn't do that on a column still.
You could run it on a column still. The problem is the fermentation, right?
Right.
And how they fill those 90,000 gallon fermenters.
Right.
So they're really cooking corn with wheat. It goes in, and then the liquefied, malt goes into it. It works really well. It all works. Yeah. It's all just chemistry, right?
Yeah.
But in order to get those flavors, and I've had the H. Taylor's great, but it just tastes like every other H. Taylor. It didn't change much. Yeah. And they were the second bonded 4-grain in the US history. We're the first. We had a 4-year out before that, but ours was 4 years old. Theirs was 12 or something. So, but ours does get you the different grain flavors. Right. And there's others on the market that are 4-grain that do the same, but it's tough to do. It's hard work. It's harder to do, and it takes more time, and it's definitely more hands-on.
How long so the process obviously can take a very long time just for a batch, but how many batches did you go through, or how many years possibly did it take to get to this final recipe, or this final process, I guess?
Like 6 months. So like we have barrel 1 that we open every year on our anniversary, and we pull a couple cases out, and anyone that comes through the tour gets to try it. And everyone gets super stoked. They're like, whoa, barrel 1, the very first. And we're like, yeah, but it ain't the best thing we ever made because it's literally the very first barrel of whiskey I ever made in my whole life. And I'm not going to tell you that it was the best. And it was, again, it had the rye issue. Well, it's delicious, but it wasn't doing what we wanted it to do. And I would say we finally perfected it at barrel 100. Okay. So, and that was 6 months, we kind of got it there, and then we tweaked other parts of the recipe. But by 100, which was like March, we started in July. So that's when we nailed it. And then we've continued to improve. Like one thing that people don't realize is that this is not one and done, set it, now you just fire and forget every time. You constantly have to monitor it. The grain changes every year. There's things that'll happen and you don't know why. It won't attenuate. That means it won't fully work out for some reason. And so you always have to pay attention. And our logo is actually symbolic of this. Up and down, the big thing that looks like an 8, that's infinity, that's time, right? And then across it, see all the little ones, the little continuous loops and coming back, that's continuous improvement, art, technique. Do something 1,000 times, get better at it every time because you're always paying attention to details. But in doing that, always pay homage to time because we make whiskey. We're not interested in shortening time. We're looking at optimizing it, right? And I don't want to a vibrating mechanism that shortens the maturation. I'm not interested in any of that. So I want it to take time because I want it to be different every time, because every year there's a difference in the atmospheric pressures and the temperatures, all these things. So I want it to be different. And in the rye that we'll get to in a few minutes, we don't even cross-marry grain years in the rye. So you get vintage as well as terroir, and like literally every batch of rye will taste a little bit different because we're not going to mix and mix and mix to get it there. We're not interested in keeping it the same. We want it to drift. We want it to give it the true expression of that grain year. So let's pick up the cask strength one though. So same mash bill here. The proof I think is around 116, 115. And that's kind of the typical level for our barrels after 3 or 4 years. Single barrel, cask strength whiskeys, you all know they've been increasingly popular with kind of the whiskey set, right? Cask strength, barrel proof is seen as the unadulterated version of the whiskey. I agree. It is the level that it's at before we add the water to it to bring it down to a bottle strength. But what many don't realize is that the alcohol in the whiskey is what carries the flavor. So the most intense flavor you're going to get are at cask strength. Most people are, oh my God, it's too much alcohol, it's going to burn. No, not necessarily. Ours doesn't tend to burn that much. And that's because of, again, process control of when it comes off the still, we want to keep it coming off like the spirit temperature below 70. If you keep the spirit temperature low, it has less of a fiery bite to it. So this is not much of a bite, right?
No.
But it's 115, 116 proof. But the flavors, the ones you tasted before, are still there. They're just a little bit more wrapped up. Take a little water. Just needs a few more drops. Got it.
I think there's less bite here than the standard 4 grain.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's interesting, right?
Yeah, and they both kind of smell like an agricole rum, which is really, really interesting. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. It's probably just the grains, but it's a unique ride.
Interesting. Yeah, I can get that now. So if you go back and forth between the two.
Yeah, back and forth between the two, I'm getting just a much stronger flavor on the cask strength, but a lot less of a burn than you get on most of the other full proofs that we try. I'm not really at that, being, like I said, younger in the bourbon, I get a full proof and I have to water it down. This one, I don't, either my palate's just getting stronger now, or it's the fact that it's just nice and mellow with this cask strength. 115, 116 is okay. Some of these 120s, 130s, where they push it, it's like, oh, I gotta calm this down a little bit. But I feel like 100 to 110 is a good place for me. And this cask strength is really good. I like it.
So do you think 4 grains holds up to? I think just 4 grains holds up to a higher proof a little bit better than, say, a 3 grain. You know, I just think it's, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I just think there's so much flavor in 4 grain that you just don't have in a, your typical Kentucky bourbon that just, it's just, like I said before, when you open that bottle, it's just all flavor and all farm and, it's all grain,
Yeah.
and it's not super corn, it's the barley's kicking in that I think can absorb kind of some of the higher proofs, about 15.
Well, and also it's like you said, it's the grain is going to be there because we have more flavor grain in it, period. Right? So in the recipe, there's just more of the flavor grain. So those flavor, and then there are heirloom varieties, so they're going to punch up from there. And so the corn is understated. So it's a drier bourbon. It's not like even the mouth feels drier, right?
Right.
Now, and then again, that's the grain profile mostly. So it's recipe related and technique related. And then the barrel, it's in there for 3 to 4 years. It's a legit amount. And then when we get to the 6, like now you're going to have more barrel influence. So some of that dryness is going to start to push back, push to the back end of things. So it starts to get more similar to what but the grain flavors are still going to be there.
The cast strength is much sweeter mid palate. That orange, that caramel, you're getting some vanilla in there. It's same flavor profile as your flagship, just intensified. That finish, you get that tease coming in. Yeah, it's delicious. I mean,
Interesting though that it's about 20-25% more alcohol content, but the mouthfeel is better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would think that the alcohol would make it sharper, but it isn't. It's more round.
Spot on.
So let's move on to the rye. I'll move these over.
You're getting the cheers from the wife over here.
So let's grab the first glass of rye.
Let's do a road trip to Colorado.
This is our SLV rye, San Luis Valley. We changed the name of it about 2 years ago. And that was because it was just called Cicale before. And Cicale was, a Latin word for the grasses in which the rye was derived from. But it didn't have any sense of place. So Tasha was like, well, we want the sense of place. So SLV says it tells more about our story of our rye. It's the very first of what we call a deconstruction of the grain profile of the foregrain. So we make basically 100% particular grain, single grain whiskeys, and then compare them to the foregrain and go, hey, remember when I told you that the second part of the foregrain was this penny metallic bite that was the rye? Here you go. You're about to experience it. So this is our first deconstruction of the foregrain. It's the rye. Let's nose it again. Ooh. Completely different, right? Time for a quick sip.
This is really just easy drinking.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
So to me, rye is one of the most passionate whiskeys. It's got floral, kind of perfume notes on the nose, vanilla, peppery, salty, minty. It's bright, yet it's still kind of deep and mysterious, right? First sip isn't enough. You got to go have another sip of that. Kind of romances you.
Can't believe how smooth that is.
It's alive.
Yeah.
You know what I like rye? This is a weird thing, but entertain me. I think I like rye because it adjusts to your mood. It's kind of expressive. It gets into you quick. It's got a super long finish. It's like, first it's in the taste buds. It's already in your taste buds. You're like, that's there. But it's pleasant. They should make chewing gum with this flavor. And then it gets into your breath. You breathe it in your lungs. Then you can sort of, after about the first glass, it kind of gets into your veins. You feel it in your heartbeat. Starts talking to you. But this is our SLV rye. It's 100% rye, half malted rye, half raw rye. That's as simple a recipe as you're going to get. Use an American ale yeast. This is, and then in this, there's no barrels here less than 3 years old. In fact, I think that what you have is probably 4 years old. It's mostly 4-year-old. In fact, there might be no 3-year-old in it at all. But this is what we used to put out as bonded 2 years ago. And this is what won the world's best rye award from Whiskey Magazine. 4-year-old bonded rye, which is essentially what you're drinking now. Just doesn't say bonded on them, and it's not bonded because it's 95 proof.
Yeah,
But pretty suitable for cocktails and stands up to other ingredients. Won't lose its personality.
Have you made Manhattans with that?
Mhm.
I'm sure you have, but
It makes the best cocktail. We get some bars in DC pouring it, and they're blowing through it because old fashioned Manhattan, it's just the fruit in it pops. It's really incredible. Make a cocktail with it.
yeah, I enjoy a good Manhattan. I feel like it'd be great in Manhattan. I mean, it's great the way it is, but
Yeah.
you know,
It's gonna be hard to make this into a cocktail, but it might have to happen.
You have to do it sometime.
Trust me.
Yeah.
It's tremendous.
Try a Sazerac with it too. When just when you add in the peychaus and a little lemon, it's really unbelievable.
So what are the flavors here that everyone tastes? It's different for sure, right? Salted caramel, apples is in this one. It's like green apple or apples that you cut up on the counter and let kind of brown up. It's nice.
Halfway through, and it's just for like a half second, I taste Smarties.
Interesting. Wow.
I don't know what it is. It's just like
Yeah,
literally
totally get it.
a second after you take a sip, just briefly, you get, it's like that sweet, dryish flavor almost, just for, it's brief. And I'm not, I can't name all these flavors and ingredients like some can. Like your palate's way more advanced than mine, but I taste like Smarties just for a brief second. And it's interesting, but it's really good. It's very
I
sweet.
wrote that down because it does taste like Smarties. Like the candy coating and then a little like milk chocolate. There's almost a little chocolate in it.
If you stick your nose inside this little bottle, when he's saying Smarties, it's right there.
Yeah.
The 4-grain when we did it, I was really getting that caramel and the vanilla on this one. I'm getting more of like an apple pie, like a warm apple pie with maybe some caramel in there, and you're right with the apple. It's like that. It's just comforting apple pie to me. It's just so delicious.
So and rye should have like peppery notes to it, but the difference in ours, in all of them, is going to be that the peppery notes are more vegetative. They're like serrano pepper, because the pepper isn't like that cracked pepper burn. It's more like this radiant heat of serrano pepper, and it's beautiful because it just sort of warms your mouth, like just sort of slowly moves in through the rest from breathing it in through your lungs and everything. I get a little bit of dill today too, which is really odd.
I'm getting a lot of like light citrus notes, and it's almost like a mix of orange and lime and like almost like a spritzer, or like just really subtle, but it still is just
good
there in the background.
It's on.
Really is.
Well, now let's grab the cast strength one.
Yes, please.
This one, the one, it looks like it's almost 113. And this probably is the one that you have. I think we pulled the ones that were.
No, I think Florida's 112.4 or 112.8.
112.8.
112.8. That's exactly
112.8.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're 112.8.
Wow.
That's strength rye.
Again, same mash bill, 100% rye.
Oh, I am so jealous right now. I just have to say, because I'm in Maine and I can't get any in Maine. The only one I don't have.
I don't either. I don't have it either.
It's got so much more butter in it. That's amazing. And from a deconstructed perspective, like if you're comparing this one or the regular one back to the 4-grain to try and sort of rebuild inside your palate what you were tasting in the first one.
Yes.
It's there. Like it's there. Like I'm finding the absence of those notes of things that I tasted in the 4-grain and just like right in your face. Like that's a really brilliant way to do that. If there's a way to bring all 4 grains, I don't know what 100% barley would taste like if you ferment.
It's awesome.
Is it? You've done.
It's like honeyed heather.
Yeah.
And the thing with the barley is that we make barley whiskey on grain. So we make it sour mash style. Anyone who makes American single malt typically makes it in Scotch style. So they steep the grains, let them sit, and then pull off the liquid. We don't. We do the same thing. We cook it. We don't go up to 200, 300, 200 degrees. We only go up to 150, and it's mostly malted grain. That's actually almost always all malted grain. And then we put it all into the fermenter. So then when we strip it to get the alcohol out, we're putting it in the strip run. Well, we're going to heat that to 210 again. So we're going to caramelize and burn and all those, the barley husks and the grain body are going to get. So when it's really young, our malt whiskey tastes like peanut brittle.
Yeah.
Like just sugar and peanuts. And then as it gets older, it starts to settle into more of a hazelnut thing, and then the fruit notes start to come out. But at the beginning, it's like all nutty. But it's all, again, processed. It's all sour mash. So it's going to be lower pH and all on grain.
Yeah, I would take that ride for sure in a second.
Oh, hands down.
So on your cast strength, do you feel like the 213, 215, or excuse me, 115, 113 is your sweet spot?
Rye is different. It'll typically, at 4 years, it's going to be usually below 120. But if the barrel's high, it's near a heater, it could be 125. But
do you guys temperature control the rick houses, or it's all natural?
Yeah, we keep them above 60, so they're always heated. They're always active. When they fall below 60, the barrels go quiet. Then they're not active. Like any chemical reaction, which is what's going on in a barrel, is improved by heat. That's why everyone loves the heat in the summers. And Kentucky, they used to talk about not how old the barrel was, it's how many summers it saw, because that was when it was the most active. So, and that's true. It's very true. But here, the flavors and the cast strength shouldn't really change much, right? Again, they're amped up. Proof carrying the flavor. Exceptionally pleasant, though, in the rye.
Oh.
I love this. I'm not mixing this one. I just want to drink this one neat. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
And this one to me seems like it has more viscosity. It's a little bit thicker to me. And I tell you, with the first rye, it was just more, I got a lot more of the char in the mid palate. It started out salty to me, and then I kind of got this char, and then it kind of sweet. This one, the sweet notes overpower a lot of that char I got in the first sip from the original rye. So yeah, really nice.
It's balanced too, right?
It really is.
We're exceptionally proud of this. We would sell maybe 2% of what we would sell a year was cast strength. And, it's become more popular. We had it. We had it just mostly because people would ask for it in the tasting room in particular. And then we gave it to our crack professional salespeople. And we've already sold this year more than we sold in any total year before because they're like, you got to show this to people. And we never did. So kudos to them to put this out there in front of everybody, because we were like, oh, no one wants to drink that. It's got too much alcohol, but apparently not.
No.
It is delicious.
I'm pretty sure you're about to sell some more.
Yeah, I will say our first single barrel in Florida is going to be a rye, and the Burn Steakhouse loves it. So they're gonna do a single barrel of our rye.
It's amazing. So a little story: our farmers, the Cody family farm, they love the rye. Okay, they love it because it tastes like. And someone mentioned this earlier about opening the bottle and you get the farm, the grains. Well, they like it because it tastes exactly like the air when they're harvesting the rye. Yeah. They call it whiskey without fear is what they call it. I think there's a little video that we'll show near the end, I think is them talking about this. So you get to hear it from them. But the SLV rye is only grown in that valley. It's 7,800 feet above sea level. So really high up from where you all are at now. and only one place on earth, right there in that valley. It's got huge terroir you're experiencing right now. The rye pulls the most out of the earth. The soil there in the valley, it's an old ancient seabed. So there's lots of calcium, there's lots of like salinity in the soil, which you can taste in the rye. It's almost, when it's a white spirit before it goes in the barrel, it tastes like mezcal. Has those kind of elements to it.
Wow.
And also, so you're in a seabed and then you dig down 2 feet and you're going to hit water table. So it's a really interesting place in the world. And this is a place where most of Coors barley gets grown in this valley. They grow it all across the state, but a lot of it comes from this. And that's what the Cody family did back before they decided to try to make a better life from the family farm by adding value add to agricultural product, which taking raw grain, malting it, selling it, and then doing specialty grains, so specialty type roasting, so you get like chocolate malts or caramel malts or that, and sell that to brewers. But the family farm is a homestead from back at the early part of the 20th century. These folks are very, very, very important part of the Lost family and the village. So cool place to see. Really hot during the day and really cold at night. Plant gets stressed, the temperature change concentrates starch, which is flavor. And so this stuff is pretty important. This rye is very unique to this area.
You said something about water. What water do you guys use for all these? Like how do you handle water, or what do you use?
Yeah, so we cook with city water that's gone through carbon filtration, which is runoff from snow in the mountains.
Okay.
And then we cut to go to barrel strength. So we barrel rye and bourbon between 105 and 115. We rotate them. We do like 10 at 110, 10 at 115. And so we have some variety. That's what it goes into the barrel at. But to cut from off still, which is probably 128 or so, we use El Dorado Springs water. So we don't want to cut with that into bottle because there's mineral content. But by cutting with it at the beginning, we're adding the minerality to it, which we think improves the mouthfeel later on. And then through the 3 to 6, 7 years, the minerals will flock out anyway. So we'll be able to take them out with just a coffee filter type filtration. But if we do it, and so into bottle, we'll use RO water.
Okay. Yeah, because I know like in Kentucky, for example, like at Willett or somewhere, I feel like the limestone type spring water is something that I can't remember if they act like it's an important aspect of the whole process or not, or if just people say that. I don't know. I haven't been back there.
It is, but what they're saying is they want soft water.
Yeah, like
you don't want hard water with iron content because that'll screw up your fermentations and it'll leave poor flavors. But
it's a filter as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can make water whatever you want, right? We can do whatever we want to it and create that if we want. I don't, it's part of their story and it's real because it's part of their terroir. But most everybody from Heaven Hill to Buffalo Trace all are using city water to cook with. They're doing it all comes from the municipality.
Yeah.
So, but it's real. Like what's in the water affects things, not just in the process of making it, but it definitely affects like how it tastes and how it feels on your palate. If I go up to the fridge and just tap the water dispenser, it's filtered, it's okay. But if I use a mineral water that's bottled from El Dorado Springs, we have those, and use that as my little splash of water, it's materially better.
Oh yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, I can promise you one thing: you wouldn't be using Southwest Florida water for any type of stuff. the iron sulfur content is just off the charts. But
so Zephyr Hills is not.
It might be okay up there. It might be okay. Just we have We have a decent amount of iron. It's not crazy, but it's up there.
You want to clean it up for sure, because it does have, it's a part of the, it'll affect the chemical reactions, how I should say that, yeah.
Well, and it's the depth of the spring as well. So Zephyr Hills comes from a very deep place as opposed to the things that come out of our faucets. It just kind of smells like eggs. There's a big gulf between those two, the sulfur content. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a brewer over the weekend, and he was talking about how the water quality in all these different places in Germany to get yourself a Berliner or to get a good Pilsner, like those waters specifically contribute to the flavor of those specific regional beers, the same way that people argue about the water and pizza crust coming out of New York. So yes, the water quality is super important, but like you said, you can fabricate it. Like you can make whatever you want. So why wouldn't you? Why would you match the water testing that you would get from Scotland or match what you would get from Kentucky? You know, figure it out and just make it happen.
Yeah. And we're doing that to a degree in the sense that we don't want some of the stuff the city puts in it. So we'll run it on a loop. It constantly goes through carbon filtration and then we're cooking it. So a lot of those, any volatiles are going to cook off in it. But when it comes down to, hey, we're cutting this to 110 for the barrel, we don't choose that. We choose something that we know has characteristics that add to terroir. So
because it's going right in raw. Yep.
Yeah. And that's up by Boulder. So if you think about it, these places, San Luis Valley is sort of very south of us, down near like the New Mexico border. And then the corn comes very east of us out in Burlington from Whiskey Sister Supply. And then this water's from Boulder, which is like 45 minutes from here in Denver. And so we're picking up terroir, the whole state.
So leading right into that, something that we haven't talked about yet, it gets overlooked, or it seems to be, is the wood. You know, what you're putting this in and what you're doing to that wood, where it's coming from. You know, it can get as very specific as the trees, you know, like when you're talking single barrels, you know, where you're getting it, where you're aging it, you know, what are you doing with it before you?
So we get all of our barrels from Independent Stave Company, and all of our barrels are made in Lebanon, Missouri. So they're American white oak, they're Ozarks oak, like it's Southern. So versus say like Barrel Mill, which is same type of oak tree, but grown in Minnesota.
Right.
And we had, this is near and dear to my heart. I said we had somebody come in and buy 3 single barrels last night. and we showed them 2 bourbons that were, you know, within 3 or 4 weeks of each other being made. But the main difference was we had done an oak experiment 3.5 years ago. And it was like 5 different types of barrels. And the cool one was, well, the Minnesota oak, the Barrel Mill, which we only have like 10 of them total. Its density, its matrix density is a lot tighter because of the colder weather. So it produces a different flavor profile for sure, even though it's a char number 3 barrel, it's not
right.
Same thing. It's the same oak species, but it's different. And in our barrel mix, again, given almost all from Independent Stave Company, we'll use like standard bourbon barrels, which are air dried for like 12 months in stacks, and then they're made into barrels. And then we use Cooper Select, which is almost double that amount of time drying. They don't put out anything really different. The barrels don't produce a different whiskey until after 3 years. And then the Cooper Select, the longer air dry one, produces much softer tannins and more elegant flavored whiskey. So we learned that over the last 10 years. And so we use a mix of those. And then we use these other ones. We've only been using them for 3 years. They're okay, but they're like a light char and a really deep toast. They're like wave stave barrels. They seem more like regressed. So if we're putting stuff into glass at 3.5, these things generally aren't ready at 3.5. So we don't know where they're going. We started using them to try to add this cool like coconut note, which I like in bourbon.
Yep.
But it looks like it's going to take us 4.5 to 5 years to get that. That's okay. It is what it is. But yeah, they're just different. And so we started that a few years. We keep trying different things, and our experiments take, like I said, 3-4 years. Like,
Sure,
it
it's
takes
that
a long
whole,
time.
it's that big infinity thing behind you.
Yes, it is time. And again, if we never do it, we'll never know. And someone can tell you and show you a spider chart from the people that make them. Well, this is what it'll do. I'm like, maybe, but until you know from your own side of things, you never really know. So another interesting part of like aging though, and wood and barrels is like Colorado's a different place to do this than Kentucky or Florida or now. And we're in what we call an upper mountain, like plateau desert here. Like Denver is in a desert essentially. But then we're right up against the mountains. So we get really hot in the summer. We get not too cold in the winter. Actually, we barely, this is a cold winter, but wasn't, well, I grew up in Canada, I mean, nothing like Canada. So, so we get the temperature swings that we need. But we also have this thing that you don't get in Kentucky. And then because we're on the Front Range, we have massive barometric pressure swings. And I don't mean just like, oh, just this week it went way up or way down. It happens within hours. So we have this very volatile graph of barometric pressure, and it can affect the still. Like if you come a high pressure system comes in, top of column, the still's only like 3 PSI, right? So you have a change of pressure, your 6-hour run is now 8. So those things affect things, but it affects the aging more because the barrels themselves are semi-permeant membranes, right? Like you breathe, it breathes through them, but it's in a restrictive way. So it's slow to get through. Well, if you change the pressure, if you have high temperature and change the pressure, it can't breathe. So it pressurizes the barrel very quickly. So our barrels kind of pump like a heart. So we get like the color you see, obviously we don't add any coloring or flavoring to anything we do, but our colors of our whiskey are very deep at a really young age because at the beginning, because of the barometric pressure swings, we're getting a lot out of the wood early on. So that's good. And we go deeper in the wood in a shorter period of time, which is also good. But mostly it brings the chemicals that it's trying to extract out. So it's there at the beginning. So it has more time to be in play in the breakdown and reformation that is maturation, right? So that's a big deal here. And it's something that most people don't understand. And like I said, we didn't know until early on, and I'd send Bill my samples and, hey, look at this, Bill, what do you think? He's like, what's this? I'm like, what's our 2-year rye? And he's like, no, this is 2 years, this is older. I'm like, Bill, we've only been making this for 2 years, it can't be older. He's like, well, this doesn't look like anything. And we had to take some time to figure out what it was. And that was what it is that the barrels are just more active. Now, if I had little barrels, which I don't really like, everything would just taste like wood because we would extract so much out of the wood so quickly that it would be problematic.
You think there's a big difference between the char 3 and 4?
No. I think if you get to 5, like what Jim Beam uses, then I think you'll pick those flavors, especially early on, you'll get those. And some of our early stuff, like 3 years, and someone mentioned it early that she got the char. That does show up. It just doesn't show up as much. If you had char 4s, you probably show up more. But the smoky characters is tough to get straight from the barrel.
The nice thing about yours is, I mean, you have a $1.13, $1.15, and I mean, it's just a smooth. It's a coating. It's not a sharp, I got you in the back of the throat kind of thing. It's, it's a slow, nice palate. I mean, you could drink your cask stuff every night of the week and not, and it's just, I mean, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you all on. I mean, I just found your product to be drinkable from start to finish. So
And thank you. We appreciate that because it's
So
some
what he's
flavor
saying
of
is
love.
that you just cost the Fraser family a lot more money. Thanks.
Same here.
That's
I hope
good.
you have a room for me out in Colorado.
Should all come and visit us. We're in the process of installing our second still. I just got the permit 6 minutes before I logged on to this today. And we've been
All right.
looking for this permit for 6 months.
Oh.
And it finally came through today. So
That's awesome.
it's a big deal. So we have a new 2,000 gallon
Cheers.
Vendome pot
Cheers to
still.
that. Cheers.
That's gonna get installed. It should be installed by July now. Takes a while to get it in, but we run everything right now off a 550 Vendome. And so this is allowing us to, we'll move from 100 barrels a month to 150 in the back half of this year, with capacity to go to 300 a month if we had enough working capital, which we don't. So, but we have a lot of capacity now that we haven't had. We've been running at capacity for so long, I can't even, yeah, it's been a long time. So this is a big deal for us, and it's sitting there waiting. We got the still delivered in December.
Oh,
So
I think I heard you were working 24/7. I heard you were out Christmas Day.
yeah, I work all the holidays. So so every holiday, like Thanksgiving, New Year's Day, Christmas, I run the equipment then. So we don't want to shut down. So we always run. There's a lot of reasons for that, just efficiencies, but also if you shut things down, things break. If you never shut them down, they never break. So we just like running it. But the thing is, when we get this new upgrade, we won't be running 24 hours a day now. We'll only run like 15 because we'll be able to do everything we need to do in a much shorter period. So until we get, to a point where we have to move our, keep growing it, getting up to 300 barrels a month, then we'll go back to that. But it's been a huge, I'm in a pretty good mood right now. And so I'm like, you can't imagine how painstakingly evil it is to deal with the city in Denver. Denver just doesn't like what we do. So nothing is ever easy.
You're putting this stuff in a glass. Every day's got to be a holiday.
It's beautiful. Someone asked me last night, he owns a Ford dealership, and like he bought 2 barrels for the holidays. They came in, and they bought 3 more last night. And he's like, isn't this fun? Like, do you ever get tired of this? I'm like, no, man, picking barrels is freaking fun. Like, it's super fun. And especially letting people like try it out of the barrel, and just like the cast strength, and watching them light up and go, that one's so much different. And like, it's just it's cool to see it through other people's eyes often too. So, not that we're like old in the tooth of this. We're only doing this for, making it for 10, selling it for just over 6. So we're not, certainly not pros at this yet. We're getting better every day though.
Can I ask a question about the bottles? Like, I think what drew me and I think it's perfect marketing, is like the look and the feel of the bottles are just so unique to anything else that's out there. So do you a little bit more in depth about like the design and what you guys thought about in developing it?
And real quick, that is the heaviest bourbon bottle I think that is out on the market.
Yes, probably. It's a 400 gram, what do they call it? Blob to make it. So it's expensive, and it's expensive glass. It's like high flint. So they're made in Colombia, in Bogota, Colombia. They were made in Mexico, and we kept having problems. Made by the same company, OI, but having problems with just, they weren't great. And so we moved them to the Colombia plant, and they do a fantastic job. Our whole aesthetic, as you can kind of feel from it, is craftsman era, right? So make things, simple things elegantly and architecturally, and make something. So it, make the whole thing. Don't just, hey, I made this little screw and you make this. And it's a time where you made everything, right? So the bottles themselves are like bricks. So they're nice, architectural. They feel real in your head. They're simple, but when you pick them up, you're like, whoa. And I, you know, at the beginning when we were going to bottle, we're like, what should the bottle be? And we went through the millions of types of bottles, the stock bottles, and I'm like, our bourbon needs to be in something that's worthy of the effort that we've all put into this. So it needs a better house. So we spent the time and a lot of dough. In fact, a little story, you'll probably see this come up, like we still have some of these barrels. So we took 28 two-year-old barrels from our very beginnings, 2 years in, and there's from 16 different spirit runs. There was at least one barrel from each of our very first 16, including barrel 2 was in this. And we married them all at 2 years. And then we put them back into the oak that we just took them out of. And, you know, the 28 became 20. That's how much we'd already lost. And then we painted the heads black and they just say origins on them with a number. And so that's where we came from. It's our very first things we've ever made, and can't replicate it because I took terrible notes back then. Like, so, and I'm the only one that worked here. So
Hey, Al, this is what it looks like for everybody, just so they can see it.
yeah, so that's what we released one barrel of it this fall for Christmas, and that's a 9-year-old. But I took those and I sold them to my friends for the money to build these bottles. Not kidding. So I sold every barrel for 10 grand. We kept 4 ourselves, and we came up with 160,000, and we used that to design the bottle and to get them made. And now I buy back those barrels for between 15 and 20,000 when I can. And then they always go, I don't think I want it. They get to the point and they go, yeah, I don't feel like selling it now. Maybe for another 2,000 I would sell it. And like, are you gonna really do this to me every time we have this discussion? And they literally do this, and they think it's funny, and it's not.
You call them friends?
Yeah. Well, they're like a string puppet, and they get a lot of entertainment out of it. But they were cool because they like backed us at the beginning, and they had no reason to. Like, they just said, yeah, we're gonna buy these, and it's been great. So we bought one back just 3 weeks ago, and it's been great. And some of the other people for other projects have bought barrels for us. This is years and years ago. They buy 5 barrels and they're like, okay, yeah. And we pay them interest on them, and then we buy them all back. We just bought back, I think, 8 barrels.
Wow.
And like 4 of them are like 5-year-old rye barrels. So those are valuable to us. So, but hey, we haven't finished this yet.
Gotta get it bonded.
Yeah,
Hey,
the bonded rye. Let's go right to the rye since we just.
Hey, Alan, I wanted to let you know my entire group did not get enough bonded, so or the bonded. So don't go too expressional about this. So
and I feel bad because one of them definitely spilled in transport.
all I got was sample bottles of the bonded. So I mean, you doing this is going to hurt some feelings real quick. So
David, when does the bonded land? Is it there now?
No, probably not. I think it got picked up 2 days ago. So it'll be in Florida by Monday. So start shipping out. Not a ton. So,
we'll all have bottles by Friday of next week. Is that right?
So Scott, we're still trying to find a home in Naples, but down in Fort Myers, the Fiddlesticks, 6 Mile Cypress, and A to Z all have the product we tried, the earlier product we tried today, but they'll have the bonded if they want it. They can have that by probably next week, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So that we're only 15 miles apart, but the Naples group and the Fort Myers group are kind of different. So,
You guys
we're
gonna
trying
fight?
Sean and I are trying to marry the group together, and we're trying to bring this family closer together. We're not too old divorced couple, so we're just trying to make this
We
work.
gotta find
So,
that common bond.
Yep. So
Common bonded.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring it into Cape Coral.
cheers.
We've got Fort Myers, we've got Naples. I mean, I sit on city council in Cape Coral, and I really want to get that. I really want to get it over here. So that's my whole goal.
Hey, Bobby, let us know, you know, shoot a note out to Scott or Sean. I'm sorry, you're Southwest, right? Yeah, so shoot a note to Sean and let me know where you guys shop, and we'll forward it along to our distributor.
We're working on, what we're trying to do is really work on stores that are willing to stay at or near retail on stuff, and work with the community and do like loyalty programs and stuff. So we've got about 3 of them that we're working on right now. And once we get one that's solid, that's going to be our Cape Coral venue. So it's more of the, we don't just want to give it to someone who's willing. We want to give someone who's willing to share and be a part of the group that we're trying to form here. You know, a good bourbon society that everyone gets a fair shake at everything. So that's kind of where we're at, and we're almost there with about 3 here in Cape Coral. We're just not quite there yet. So once we get it, we'll definitely let you know.
Thank you.
Well, let me go through these things, then we can chat more. So we're the first bonded whiskeys in Colorado. And we started with 4-year-old bonded stuff. So that's one of my favorite things we've ever put out. And still, we don't put it out anymore, but there's still a few cases in our cage and I drink them. The bottle and bond bourbon 4-year-olds, I think it's just the coolest. And it's exactly what we were trying to make. But we've moved on from there. So we want to keep moving the bar higher and you know, and we don't think we have to take a knee other than in size and production to anyone in Kentucky. We make world-class whiskey the right way, just like they do. But these are all bottle and bond act stuff, right? You guys know this. 1897, people were, you know, taking whatever grain alcohol, wood alcohol, putting stuff in it, and people were dying and being. So the government, for their very first act of consumer protection laws, put this law into place that protected the whiskey first, which God bless them. But they did this for tax revenue reasons mostly, but at the same time, if it's bottled and bond, it's bottled under US government supervision. So we took that as a way to express the authenticity of what we do. We make this. You can't be bonded unless you made it. And we're going to follow all the rules, which are the most restrictive ways to make whiskey in the whole world. So single season is one of the most interesting parts of that. So when we make stuff now, and we do it in batches, we're making like 200 batches of bourbon right now, and then we'll move to like 60, 80 batches of rye. We make sure those don't cross over the June to July or December to January. So otherwise it screws with what we can use, right? So that's a big deal. So the July to December, January to June are the 2 seasons that they recognize. So you got to make it out of, so basically making grain, whiskey of the same grain year. And you're going to make that under the same straight whiskey standard. So it's going to come off the still below 160. You're going to put it into a bonded warehouse, which everyone who makes whiskey, you have to have a bonded warehouse. Today, unlike then, there's no revenue dude with a revolver and keys to everything there. But you're still required to keep all the records to prove this is what you did. And then you have to pay taxes on it, obviously. But you're going to use those barrels. They have to come from one DSP. So we have a new DSP coming because we're going to have an offsite warehouse because we're at 3,300 barrels and we'll be full by the end of the year, probably at 5. And we need another 3,000 barrel accordion function, if you will. Well, that'll have a different DSP. So we've got to make sure that the barrels all come from the same DSP, same seasons. It becomes more and more, you know, process complex. Then it has to be aged for at least 4 years. Has to be single distillery, single distiller, all those same things that we already said. So those are important. And then it has to be bottled at 100 proof. It's just tough. It's way tougher. And you can say, well, why should more people could do it and should do it? Well, they do, but then they don't. And then for us, it's always important to have commercial quantities of said things. Like I could tell you in our very first release of Bottle and Bond was 2 barrels. And so we did the same thing. We wanted to plant the flag. But we followed it up 4 or 5 months later with like, a 8-barrel batch. And now we're at 25 barrels is what our batches are. We make about 1,000 6-packs a year each. And that's all we got. And then next year it'll be hopefully a little bit more because we've saved and thought it would grow. But we used to, 2 years out, we used to like this kind of quantity would last us the whole year. Well, now it lasts 6 months. And that's positive for us, but that's also a little bit baffling for us too. But in the meantime of going from 4, we moved it to 6 2 years ago, and we're not going back. And now we've added wheat whiskey, bonded wheat whiskey last year, a 4-year, this year it's 5. And the barley whiskey we put out is also bonded. So we believe in this stuff. We make bonded corn whiskey. Mellow Corn is the first, and I think the only bottle and bond corn whiskey. We're the second. Theirs is $18 or $12. Ours is 50. But that's just how it goes. You like the bottles? Hey, use them for flowers.
So Alan, correct me if I'm wrong. I love bonded bourbons, and I really think it really does separate the boys from the men.
I love it too.
From the girls, from the women, and I don't mean it's just a whole nother league. And when someone can say, I put out a bonded whiskey or a bourbon, it's, what you're doing. I mean, to hit 100% APV on the nose is tough in itself. And then you got to age it for 4 years. And it's a whole new league. And I know most of everybody on this group is well knowledge, so I don't have to go into the whole bottle and bond ordeal, but it's just a whole nother league. And I tell you, when there's a bottle and bond bourbon or whiskey on the shelf, I mean, it draws my attention. I know how much hard work it goes into it, and it's hard to sell how much hard work goes into a bottle and bond, but I tell you, it does separate from knowing the entry level to, hey, I've landed and now I can start showing my feathers,
Yeah, and that's exactly what we did. We planted the flags at 4 years and we moved it up. And this is I think it's our 4th batch of bottle and bond 6-year-old. And it's our 3rd or 2nd, I think. I don't remember.
Second rye.
Second rye? Thanks,
Yep.
Dave. And like what you're sipping on it's a minimum 6, but like the bourbon that you're gonna get in state is like 6.5 years old.
Oh,
that just happens to be when the barrel, that's how old the barrels are. It's not a big difference between 6, 6.5, but we have 100 barrels that are over 7, and so there's more coming. And that one that was put out was technically a batch. We didn't call it bonded, but the 9-year-old that sold out in an hour on an auction to be able to buy it in December or November. So that went pretty quick. Like we have older whiskeys here, but I think when you're tasting this, and I don't want to dwell on it since you all don't have it, but there's definitely more balance. And a discussion again in this thing last night was like, well, how long could rye go? Because you don't see rye, see a lot of old rye. Like I have a few like Rittenhouse, or they're like 21 and 23 years old, and I can't ever replace them when I open them, but we've been opening them.
And we did, Al. I remember that not too long ago.
Right, you got to enjoy that.
Yeah, I haven't been
Worry
to the
about your
cellar
luck,
yet. I'm
Dave.
still angry about it. The cave.
But like rye, rye is really develops early. So 2-year-old rye could be amazing. But you don't see a lot of older ryes. And I think one of the reasons is when it gets this old, remember our 6, because of its, enhanced wood contact, maybe it tastes older than that, but it isn't. It's 6 years old and it's big and rich. But I'll tell you, it's starting to taste more and more like rye bourbon. So it loses those interesting notes that you all were commenting on that you loved. It starts to lose that when you get more and more barrel influence on it. It's a great whiskey, but I don't know, it's something you got to try and decide for yourself. So we have some rye that's just cresting 8 years old, and she's a beautiful barrels of rye. But again, it's not the same thing as that cask strength rye and the batch rye, which there's just so much energy in them. So there is a difference here. So I'm not, it sounds like I'm talking these down. I'm not, they're great. They're just different. And I that's just why I thought it was a cool thing to have all 3 of them here tonight to move on to this one. And I'm trying the rye since we just finished.
I'm sorry, did they not have samples of the bonded?
So we only received one sample of the rye and the bonded.
Oh,
so
okay.
But
so who has
all
that?
good? All good.
The rye is my favorite. It's just delicious.
David, if you'd like to remedy that, you're more than welcome to make it up to this group.
That's a perfect question right there.
We're gonna get that down into your neighborhoods real quick. So
Yeah, promise. Because we had about 3/4 of an ounce to split, and
What happened?
I don't, Al, Dave, I don't see why we couldn't send them, or is this like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Cross legal grounds or whatever you got, but can we send some of these little
Sheriff
ones?
Al, I don't know.
As the attorney of the group, there is a lot of red tape you have to go through to be able to.
listen, I'll send you my address and just put some beans in it in the box. We're good.
I ship a lot of olive oil.
Yes.
Lots of olive oil.
I'm going to say that anything said on this call has not been approved by the Southwest Bourbon Society or Sean Farrell.
Are we on the rye bottle and bond or the 4 grain bottle and bond?
The rye. So try it. If you have it, try it. Again, the
I have a little
difference
bit.
here. Ooh, he's taunting.
Sorry.
I think it's my favorite by far.
And it's not I'm not a big rye guy, so I've been very happy with the ryes that have been expressed here today. And I even pulled a one of the Willet ryes, like the only other rye I have is like a Willet rye, to taste it side by side, because I'm really new into this, and my palate has been, it's good. I really love it. I love the rye that you guys have. The first expression of the rye I like better than the cask strength rye, but that's only because the cask strength on rye is a whole different aspect for me. I've got a couple other ones here. Like I said, I pulled the Willet down. I did it side by side, and the flavor and the taste of the original rye to me is something that might get me into more into ryes instead of just regular bourbon. But my favorite so far, overall, the 4 grain cask strength. I will buy multiple bottles as soon as it's available here, because
it's available now.
It's corn forward, but has that other flavor, the malted barley, all that other different. I got the cinnamon on it. I got everything. I got the rye in the back end. It's really what has a whole different aspect to me than what I get on your normal bourbon expressions. So my favorite so far has been the 4 grain cask strength, but the rye has piqued. It's like that meme you see. It's piqued my interest. So
Love
now
it.
I'm like, do I want to venture into the next level of bourbon, or do I want to stay where I'm at, where I'm happy with, or what's going to happen next? And it'll only be I really don't know where it's going to go. So
So
Can you
bottle,
share with,
go ahead.
sorry, can you share with us like the price points? Because I don't know if we talked about that on this call, just like what we should be looking at for each of these expressions.
I'll tell you what it is. In Colorado, we're like, for the batch ones, the first bourbon and the rye are like 55 to 59. And I think that's what they are in Florida. You guys can
Yep.
correct me if
Yep.
I'm wrong.
Yes.
The bonded is, it's supposed to be in the $75 range, but I don't.
Yep. That
but
should
I
be
don't-
where it'll go. Yep.
Yeah. And then the cask ones are more premium for sure. But I don't know
89.
what that is.
They're probably in the high 80s.
Okay.
Say it all day long, brother.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, my wife
basically
just
from
said, yeah.
tonight's review, I mean, you basically have from Miami to Tampa taken care of. I mean, this corridor, we can take care of you. It's just, you know, when you have the bonded, which is a little special. I mean, as I told you before, I'm sold on bonded, but you know, I mean, your bourbon lathers just so many flavors and taste that I think a lot of bourbons miss. And that's the reason I was so excited to have you all on. I wanted to share it with Sean and tonight. And, you know, I mean, I don't ever want to think there's a difference between Sean's group and our group. I mean, we intermingle all the time, but I just want to let everybody know this distillery is, I mean, putting out wonderful product. I mean, I don't care if they're in Colorado or Alaska. I mean, it's just extremely good product, you know, and you know, I'm big on 4 grain. I told you before. Look, I mean, when you pop that bottle, I mean, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to smell all 4 grains. They're big, they're bold, and it's going to coat you from start to finish. And it's just good. And I hope Sean's group, my group, can, you know, move forward. I mean, I don't think you'll have any issue in, say, South Florida per se pushing this product. So I mean, I know everybody can push it. So
Can you tell us a little bit about how large of a production you're putting out right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we said, like, we make 100 barrels a month, and typically that's like 70% is bourbon and 25% is rye. And then we mix in runs of, like, I think we made 20 barrels of wheat whiskey in February, and we have maybe 280 barrels of wheat whiskey aging, but it's not something we put out a lot of. Like, this year we'll use up, I don't know, 20 barrels for the whole year's release.
Yeah. So we're looking to do case-wise like 8,800 cases this year, compared to Uncle Ernest that's going to do 250,000. If you want to compare it to something like that.
No, it's interesting. You know, Uncle Ernest is a little bit newer on the scene too. So it's just, but they're pushing out a lot right now. So you guys are still getting out there, but I wouldn't be surprised that you overtake them pretty darn soon. And we'll be part of that.
Music to Al's ears.
Yeah. Well, we don't, remember I said earlier, we only have 3,300 barrels aging. So like,
so
we
how
can
long
only
if we
grow
come
so
to visit
fast.
you? Yeah, if we come to visit you, what can we expect? I mean, how many employees, how large of an operation are we looking
Oh,
at?
okay. We have like 36 people total across country. And we have a cool little tasting room, which is the tasting experience is real. You're going to learn a lot. It's really fun. We have great people that do those. We are, the permit I talked to you about earlier is the first stage of when it's done, then we build our tasting room, which we've been waiting for almost a year to build. And it's a brand new facility. It's got a cool brutalist style, and it'll be 2 stories, and you'll have a cool tasting experience. And then there's a cocktail experience on the 2nd floor, and eventually a roof deck too. But it's a cool experience. Like we pride ourselves on educating people through it, and you get to see it. Unlike a brewery, which is going to see a tank farm, going to do a distillery that's operating 24 hours a day, you're going to get to see everything. Open air fermentation, stills running. We have great village. You distiller engage and talk to you if you have good questions that our tour people can't answer, which you can stump then. You're doing pretty good.
1/3 of our whiskey is woman made, girl made, really. She's 30, right? Barb?
Yeah. We have a mix of people. So we have a good diversity in our village. And yeah, Barb's a perfect example. She's a chemical engineer, went to
Alabama.
Yeah, Roll Tide. She's writes Roll Tide and everything.
She's the smartest one in the group.
Yeah, she's super smart and did QA for breweries before this. She's born in Kentucky, grew up in Kentucky. She's like been there for almost a year and a half. Huge addition. Another guy we just got a year ago from Mississippi who worked for Cathead. You guys probably know Cathead Vodka. He worked there for a while. Guy that's who our senior distiller. We don't have a head distiller either. We don't believe in that. Like everyone, so many people, oh, I'm the master distiller. Really? You're like 28 years old, then how are you the master distiller? Like it just doesn't jive. And like I said earlier, I when I talked about Bill, when that term meant something, there were only 9 of them in the country. So today it doesn't mean much. And to us, we treat everybody like they belong on the crew and they contribute, and we treat it like, again, here's my Canadian thing gonna come out, but it's like a hockey team. Everyone sits at the table, everyone has a role, and they've had different level of experience, but they all get listened to and they all respect each other. And if you run the equipment, you are the head distiller, and you're accountable to your teammates and you're accountable to me. And so we don't have any zombies on our floor. So everyone's very engaged. We're not just pulling some levers and can't wait till we get off shift. So
Alan, one of the great things when I was talking to Al before, I mean, I think that's kudos to your team, and it's really a team building your brand, because it's a, hey, let's talk to the master distiller, let's talk to who's in charge. I mean, and when I was talking to your group, I mean, it was, hey, everyone's involved. So and I think that's super special to your group. I mean, they're putting out exceptional product. I mean, if you were to do a blind test, I mean, I know there's whiskey conferences across the country, but I mean, you can hold your own, and it's in your entire team, and your team is your brand, so kudos to you for not pointing that out. I mean, you pointed that out clearly, and I think everyone in the group should know that, hey, there's not one master distillery. There's a team behind this, and I really do think you're putting out a great product.
Appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, it's like an involved thing. We just actually, our sales team here that can count to this is like, we showed them in a presentation basically how the stuff gets to the bottle, and no one knew this. But like, so we're gonna do another batch of rye because we're running out starting next week when the tanks are empty. Well, this started 4 weeks ago. Start with 100 barrels to pick 40-ish, and that's by barrel, not by a spread. We start with the spreadsheet, and here's the range. And now you got to pull all those barrels down and go through them. And like they mark them with dots, and actually not them, it's really James, he's our barrel manager. And he calls over our production crew and says, hey, these 2 days I need 3 of you to run through this the way I did. And you put your own dots on stuff. And then from there, he'll build 3 versions of the batch. And then he'll bring those over, A, B, and C. Doesn't tell you anything about what he did in the versions. And then our production team during their meeting will go through them and write their notes. And then, okay, everybody got all your notes? Okay, you, Barb, what do you think? Oh, okay. Alex, what do you think? And just kind of go through, and from there, we either go, okay, well, we like this, we don't like this, and he'll take them away sometimes. Sometimes like, oh yeah, this nails it. Or sometimes like, well, we don't really like these ones, we like this the most, and then he'll go away, and 3 days later, he'll bring you back something that's been, modified, the mix has been modified. This takes a month. Like, it doesn't happen like, hey, these barrels are ready, put them in glass. That does not happen. And then once they're in the tank and they sit there and they get to know each other, marry a little bit, it's going to take, we only reduce proof to bottling by at most 3 points a day. So it's a very slow drip because we don't want to shock the whiskey. When you add water to whiskey, it's an exothermic reaction. So you can see a tank of, 4,000 gallons. You add, 30 gallons of water, the tank will rise 5 or 6 degrees Fahrenheit. And again, they're both at room temperature, but that reaction affects the whiskey. So we don't want to shock it again, make it too mad. So it's a very slow process. So, and rye is even harder because rye, you don't like having water added to it. It has an attitude about it. But all these things are all part of like a process and operations, but it's about respect for what goes in the bottle and all the years that we took to make this. So really important to us to treat it the proper way, right to the point the labels go on and the cases get taped up. So even our hand bottlers, we have a cool team of people like that too. It's a real tough job, putting stickers on bottles and putting everything else and making sure, everything's right is a tough job. And they do a great job too. Everything's hand bottled. Someone touches that bottle, it's in your hand 13 times before it goes into the case.
And I can tell you all from personal experience, and so can David, that I had Al watching me as I was trying to put labels on the bottles. I have a lot of respect for this because I was doing about 5-6 bottles a minute. Think about that.
And they weren't straight, were they?
I got them straight. I think I did at least. I don't know. I mean,
he's like a professor over top of it. He's like all hunched over and kind of like, and all the people on the line are like watching him do it, and they're kind of like moving their head back and forth, looking up at me. I'm like, he's a sales guy. Just
Yeah, I gotta jump in here because I've been I play stickers on things for 20 years. I'm a sign and printing guy. So when it comes to bottles and labeling bottles, I've worked with plenty of them before. And I understand the need to place them in the right spot.
It's a really tough job. And people go, oh, yeah, but and they get, oh, I want to do it. And we'll have people
it's got to go right on here.
Yeah.
You got to get this right on the V. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's showing up, but it's got to go right here on the V, and it's got to be right, perfectly placed, about a half inch up on the bottom. It's not easy.
Well,
Hey, Al, I want to let you know I have a couple of bottles over here that are like crooked. Were you drinking that day or?
I'm going to tell you,
went to Tootsie's
that they're within tolerance.
Process.
Mine, just so you guys know, mine were a single barrel going into Colorado at a place called Tootsie's. So I take full responsibility.
Al, just so you know, Tootsie's over here is a completely different.
Completely different.
I was like, I don't think you need to mention that
I
name.
know what Tootsie's over here is, but that's a whole nother. I'll plead the fifth on that. But yes.
Yes.
Hey guys, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I think just on behalf of both of the bourbon societies and all of us on tonight, we really want to thank y'all so much. And I just want to let the team here know if there are any last minute thoughts or questions they want to answer real quick. We can maybe do a lightning round, but I really want to respect your time and thank you both, or all of you, everyone who made this happen. put the effort in. We appreciate it. And David, let us know when you're coming to Florida, Southwest Florida. We will welcome you with open arms.
Absolutely. Well, Jacksonville, but then I'll be back down because I have to go into Burns and have some of that single barrel when they get it.
We may have to meet you there. If you can help us get a reservation.
Yeah.
we'll be
I
there.
can do that. I can definitely do that. That's no problem.
So I got a quick question. You mentioned doing barrel picks, and we just did our first group's barrel pick here, and we sold it in 40 minutes. 168 bottles in 40 minutes. And, bringing something like this to the table, bringing this to our palates tonight, and your passion for this is right up our group's alley. I mean, this is why we're doing it. Man,
We definitely do them. So yeah, if you're interested, ours will yield.
Hell yeah. That was 28
bottles.
cases. Ours was about 35.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we did.
I don't think that'd be an issue between the two groups or your group. I mean, I don't think that'd be a problem whatsoever.
Well, later this year, so these are coming to you soon, but there's also the Bottle and Bond wheat that's coming
Mayish.
Yeah,
Mhm.
May, June, I think.
Yep.
It just went in glass today. It started to get labeled. It's amazing. And I think it's great for the hot weather. It's our summer sipper is what we call it. So pack the glass full of ice, pour this on it. It's gonna, cream it up a bit. It'll actually taste like an orange creamsicle when you do that.
Wow.
And it's
That's what I was waiting for, was for you to mention that we did and when it's gonna come out, because I'm a wheat guy. I'm excited for that.
man, this is 100% wheat. It's gonna blow your mind. And it's
Well,
really good.
Because if it's your summer sipper, it's year round for Florida. So that's
Yeah,
perfect.
that's right.
There you go.
I can drink that in December.
Yes.
I don't know. I used to have a condo in Largo by Clearwater, and 60 degrees in Florida is not warm.
That always amazes me.
So if we're not drinking Kentucky bourbon for Kentucky Derby, so what do you suggest? Your wheated bourbon that's not quite out could be here.
It won't.
No,
it'll
no.
ship It'll be shipped like mid-May, so you'll have it in June. But it's 100% wheat whiskey. It is. I don't know of anyone else who makes 100% wheat whiskey. So this is pretty. It's amazing. It's a.
Then we have the
big
malt
whiskey.
coming as well, right?
Yeah, the malt I think comes in the fall, right, Dave?
Yeah, back half a little bit. And then at the end of the year, OND, we have a cognac finish. So we do a specialty, specialty barrel every year. Last year was port finish. This year it's going to be cognac.
The cognac's different too, because it's not just barrels of it. It's bourbon finished in cognac and then married into a foeder. It's a 1,600 gallon cognac blending tank that we bought. It's 50 years old. And then it sits in there and integrates. And then we harvest about 35-40% of it. And then we refill it. So it's a Solera process. Average age is, the minimum age is from around 4 years old in it, but it's got all different type of cognac barrels. Plus has this vessel it's in for oxidization. So it's, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It's a big whiskey too, and has subtle cognac notes that, wow, they just keep giving. It's a new thing for us. We've been working on this project for 2 years.
Well, hey, I just want to thank you all again. And maybe David, you can send us some updates of when things are hitting Florida. We can push it out to our groups.
Absolutely.
But, hey, thank you all so much. Again, I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. But yeah, appreciate you all.
And
absolutely.
So kind of like a roundhouse real quick. I mean, any questions, concerns, or anybody have anything?
I have a question. What are you experimenting with right now? Like what type, like you have these barrel finished products and everything else. I just feel like there's got to be a laboratory of cool ideas going on.
Distillery
Well, there
only.
We got some Madeira barrels, which were tough to get. Calvados is one of our favorite things. We're just trying to lock down on some more Calvados barrels from Normandy. We're pretty specific. We typically like Brielle and Drouhin. So to get what we want is tough. We're malt whiskey, which is, everyone says it's a new category in American malt whiskey. Well, we have an entirely bizarre array of stuff that we made. So we're working on like a fall blend of like some stuff we have smoke, some has peated, some is like got chocolate malt in it. So we have all these different paints, if you will, on our palate, and we want to blend something kind of cool from what we have, because no one really does that. They just make a typical recipe and age it. And we have 300 barrels of this stuff, and it's all really interesting. So that's a thing we've been working on for a while. Maybe it won't even find a way to the shelf this year. It might be next year, but these things, all this stuff takes a lot of time. That's a lot of time.
You always have always have a home in Southwest Florida. So
wonderful. One of my favorite places to go since I was 5. So
hey, and like I said, when it comes to 4 Green bourbons and whiskeys, you always have a home here. And questions or concerns from anybody else from the group, I want to say, hey, kudos to taking the time to join us tonight. I was excited like 2-3 months ago when you all were going to come on board, and I really think if you need help in this, say, Southwest Florida corridor, I mean, you probably have the strongest group on board, right? I mean, this group here, I mean, it's probably one of the strongest groups that you can have. So I just want to closing notes. Thank you for coming on board. We enjoyed everything you have to offer. We look forward to cheers with you when you come down here to Southwest Florida. We'd love to have you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
That sounds great. I look forward to coming down and seeing you in person now that we're almost out of COVID.
Almost.
I got the J&J jab yesterday, so I'm good in 2 weeks.
Hey, Scott and Sean too, and everybody from that's on the call here. Thank you for coming and joining us tonight. And look, there's an open invitation to everybody to come visit us in Colorado. So if you ever find your way out this way or out that way, I should say, I'll be there soon. I'm not there now.
Aren't you in Maine?
I feel like I'm there. I'm like there virtually every day, right? But yeah, I mean, let us know, please. I mean, you guys have our contact info, and we'd be happy to host you and show you what we're doing. So we appreciate the invite the other way too. So when we're out in your neck of the woods, we'll certainly reach out and stay in touch. So thank you.
Hey,
So I can please go ahead, Mr.
Hey, before we go, do you want to show that last 1-minute video
Yes.
of the farmers?
I guess I wanted to real quick just say that I like us from the Southwest Florida Bourbon Society. Thank you for all your time tonight. Like, was not fully expecting this to go 2 hours, and like it's just been the most impactful kind of conversation. Like we're still wanting more and more, and this has just been an amazing experience. And I think I'm talking on behalf of all of the people that we have here. I can't thank Scott enough, because without Scott, I don't think any of this would have happened. I know at least what we're going to do with the remainder of our bottles, which we have a good portion left, is, I mean, case in point. But what we do is we run something called the PPP program down here. It's the Pour Post Pass, where we provide samples to people within our group, so they're able to firsthand try the whiskey. That way they know, okay, I go out to the store, I've tried that, and that's going to be a focus point of me going to that store and purchasing it. So that way we're sort of spreading the word of Law's Whiskey House within our community, and hopefully the people are pounding down doors and being like, hey, you need to have more of this within our footprint down here, because I can tell you firsthand, just with everyone here, I think you guys have made everyone believers in what you guys are doing. So please don't change what you guys are doing, because all 6 samples that we've had today have been incredible. I'm sure everyone has their personal favorite, but I can't thank you guys enough for allowing us to take part in this, and B, giving us your valuable time into the deep dive so we can allow our members to access this great product.
So thank you, Sean. Let me hey, I just wanted to share this with you.
Oh yeah, this is fun. These are our farmers. They're salt of the earth.
The San Luis Valley Rye is perhaps the most unique grain that we've ever worked with. The San Luis Valley Rye is a variety that grows really well here because of the unique climate. We have these very cool evenings in the summer, also very warm, sunny, long days before that, and that combination of growth is crucial to the health of the rye plant. It's an amazing grain because of its heirloom nature. It's indigenous to this area, which brings 1,000-fold complexities and different aromatics compared to other ryes that are being sort of commercially produced and grown.
It's the hardest one to make. It's a very fiery, explosive, passionate whiskey. It's tough. It's tough to coax that out, but it's worthwhile. It's the most flavorful of all the single variety whiskeys that we make.
It has no fear. It's literally whiskey with no fear. And in an industrial model where you're building recipe to either efficiency or consumer demand, there is always a barrier there. And when you can stop living in fear and you can just trust that grain to bring the flavor to your whiskey, then all of a sudden you get to taste the heart of where it comes from, where it's grown, and what it is. When we see Laws Rye or any of the spirits that come from Laws do well, like we feel like we're connected with that. In one sense, you're putting in a seed. In another sense, you're putting in, it's almost like putting in a sponge. You're like planting a bit of a sponge because it's going to take from its environment. We see it actually bringing unique terroir flavor to whiskey with Laws Whiskey House that you couldn't get anywhere else. It's a variety of rye that grows only here, that flourishes only here, that has changed the world.
I know we're out of time, but next Zoom meeting, Al can tell you about bourbon barrel number 666 that he put out, and the story behind that, because it is fabulous. But we're out of time, so for another meeting.
We can meet next week.
Yeah.
We're good. Hey, but closing notes, Sean can follow up. I want to say, hey, thanks for everybody taking time tonight. I know we kind of ran a little long, but it's okay. With this good quality bourbons, I don't care if it runs an hour or too long. It's just good bourbon, good whiskey, good friends, and it's good cause. I strongly believe in supporting distilleries who are truly grain to bottle. And I hope I can pass that on to the Naples Bourbon Society. That's what I strongly believe. And when I approached Laws and they approached me through their PR company, it was just a good fit. And I could not be more happy that you're kind of landing here in Florida. You have such a good group behind you. You have great product, and I can't say enough.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott.
I enjoy this too, guys. Like, I have to do these things, and these are my favorite things, like, because you guys are into this. And you're our people. You're like,
we geek out about it.
Like, it's so cool for us. It's so easy for me to do this. And I would have brought one of our distillers, but we had someone sick, so we couldn't get that person up. But like, we like to engage with people who like what they put in their own glass and care about what goes in the glass. And
yeah, dude, you're our
thank you for your interest, because it's very meaningful for what we do. It's rewarding for us to talk to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, you're certainly our people.
Thank you for saying that. We appreciate that. We really
Thank
do.
you so much. Well, if this is going so good this time, we will 6 months from now, maybe we'll just do another one, right?
We're gonna
We'll
do
get some
another
more
one.
people on.
Sure.
We're gonna do one with you guys when we release one of these special finishes. We'll get together again.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Just make
That'd
sure
be
we get
awesome.
enough of it.
We will. Yeah. Sorry
Well,
about
you
that.
guys will have the shot for sure.
It'll be.
And anything you guys provide for
It's gonna be
samples,
down
we
there
can send
soon.
out. We can send samples out to our members as well. So if you guys want to do a larger tasting with people that aren't necessarily admin, but are just, you know, raw consumers, by all means, we'll handle distribution. If you can get us a bottle, we'll crank it out to the team.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll share this with our group tomorrow and Sean, your group tomorrow on Facebook. So it'll be posted, and you know, thank you for everything you've provided us. We'll try to provide as many samples as we possibly can. And until then, let's kind of sign off. Hey, I get there again. Thank you for everybody that participated tonight, questions, and let's next time. Cheers, salute, everyone.
We have to say roll tide in honor of the.
You have to. Barb
He
is
does,
very
yeah.
persistent. Yeah.
We have
Especially
to
after
record that for Barb, though. We have to record the roll tide.
especially after the national victory. Like we had to hear about it forever.
We're gonna get blowback here locally because we have a lot.
How about a good cheers?
Amen.
Cheers.
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 Thank you, everyone.
Drink
Ain't
no
no
evil.
summit.
Drink no evil.
There you go. Cheers. Take care.
All right, everyone, have a good night.
Have a good night,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.